The royal baby watch is in full swing. It's believed Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, will give birth any day now to a second child for her and Prince William. This new baby will become fourth in line for the throne after his or her other brother, Prince George, who was born in 2013. Royal commentator Dickie Arbiter joins us from London. He's here to tell us about what we'll see and hear from the royal family when the baby is born. All right, so Dickie, what are you hearing about the royal baby?
Well, Andrew, right now we're not really hearing anything. We had a briefing at Buckingham Palace last week in which they made very clear that nobody, that's reporters, television crews, photographers, were allowed outside the Linda Wing at St Mary's Hospital here in London until such time that the Duchess had gone into hospital. They didn't want the repeat of the scenes last year where there were hundreds of media camped out there for, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. What they want is something controlled. They're going to have accreditation, so it's not all comers. They've already got the numbers that they want, and they'll be allowed into pens. And people will only be allowed there once the Duchess has gone in. So if she goes in at 4 o'clock in the morning, they won't be going in until about 8 o'clock. They're controlling it. They're actually managing it, which they should have done last time.
So we can imagine that the Duchess is at home resting today, but the rest of the world is, waiting with great anticipation, or royal watchers at least. How do you think the rest of the royal family is preparing right now for the arrival of this baby?
Well, the family is sort of doing what most families do. I'm sorry, my earpiece has dropped out. The families are doing what most families do when they're waiting for a baby. They're just waiting. It's up to the baby when it's going to come, and probably when it's tired of being scrunched up in his mother's tum, then he is going to, or she is going to come. There'll be the usual preparations having been done beforehand. They don't know what sex it is, but that's what we've been told, that William and Catherine are completely ignorant of what sex it is, so they'll be surprised when the baby comes along, and they'll probably follow very much a similar pattern that they did last time, although last time Catherine went to her home in Bucklebury. This time they'll probably go back to Norfolk to the home at Anne Hall, because that's where the Duke is working. So it's very much a wait and see.
So remind us, Dickie, I know you've got, we'll let you get that earpiece in, but remind us about, once we know that she goes to the hospital, then the camera crews will be out there, but then what happens next? When will we get a sense of the gender of the baby, and then when will we get a glimpse of the royal couple and the baby?
Well, firstly, that if the baby is born at night, there's not going to be any announcement before 8 o'clock in the morning. They've made that very clear, that first of all, the family have got to be told. Obviously, the Queen and Prince Philip, the Middletons have got to be told, and the rest of the senior members of the royal family. Once that's done, there will be an announcement. There'll be an announcement through the National News Agency, the Press Association. There'll be an announcement on an easel in the forecourt of Buckingham Palace, and they'll be using social media, Twitter, and such. So that's what will happen. But it won't be until such time the royal family have been informed. And if it's, as I say, if it's at night, then it won't be until after 8 o'clock in the morning. If the baby is born before 10 o'clock at night, there is the likelihood that the announcement will be made then, but there'll be nothing after 10 o'clock at night.
And how will the Queen learn the news? I guess she's kind of a priority in terms of people to be informed.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again, Andrew? I'm having a little bit of a problem here.
How will the Queen learn the news?
Well, the Queen will be informed pretty quickly by Prince William. He'll put a phone call through. He'll know, well, he won't necessarily know where she is, but usually phone calls are never direct to a member of the royal family. They go through the Buckingham Palace switchboard. So they will inform the Queen as soon as possible, as soon as they can get hold of her. Obviously, if it's in the middle of the night, they're not going to wait. They're going to wait until the next morning. They're not going to disturb her sleep. And that probably applies to the rest of the royal family. At the moment, Harry is in Australia. If he's back in Europe when the baby is born, all fine. But if the baby is born during the day, then they're going to wait until Harry has been informed at a reasonable hour, rather than wake him in the middle of the night.
Already, whomever this new baby is, it will be the spare, not the heir. So how will his or her life be different?
Well, that's an interesting question, because it's one I've been asked many times. There's no real role for a spare. Well, they create a role. Harry's created a role for himself. He went into the services. He was in the military for 10 years. He's now going to do other things in Australia at the moment, but he's going to concentrate on the rehabilitation of injured service personnel. He's going to concentrate on his charities and probably do a host of other things. He'll keep himself busy. But if you go back historically, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen this time around, but George V, the Queen's grandfather, was a spare because his elder brother, Albert Christian, died in 1892, and George V, who was Duke of York, became king. The Queen's father was a spare. He was Duke of York. His brother abdicated in 1936. So there is a role, although in those days the role was in the military, and you stayed in the military until such time that you had sort of more or less passed your sell-by date, and it was time that you did something on the Royal Road.
Dickie, I know that you're not a bookie, but if you were to bet, when do you think this royal baby will be born?
Well, if I was to, well, I don't think it's going to be born before the end of this coming week. If you're going to ask me what it is, yeah. I'm plumbing for a girl, and I'm going to stick my neck out, and I'm going to plumb for Victoria as the lead name and Alice and Elizabeth as secondary names. But don't hold me to that.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe we won't. But Dickie, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
That's royal commentator Dickie Arbiter in London.